All right, for today's video review, we're going to be taking a look at Transformers Shattered Glass Collection Leader Class Grimlock. Yeah, another figure in the Shattered Glass line. Now, what's kind of interesting about this one is this is like, I guess, part of Wave 3 of Shattered Glass. I don't know. This is the only one we've gotten announced so far, but we've gotten completely through Wave 1 and 2. And what's actually different about this guy compared to the other ones is he does not actually come with a comic book, and he costs the price of a regular Leader Class figure, which I hugely appreciate. I think that, I don't know that the Shattered Glass collection wasn't selling well, but all I know is that, on Hasbro Pulse, I rarely ever saw those figures sell out. So I'm guessing that they probably weren't selling that well just because people were not really wanting to pay $10 extra, above whatever the size class would be for each individual figure just for a, exclusive cover comic book. So I'm really happy that this guy doesn't cost like $65. He costs $55 like a regular leader class, because this was definitely one that I was going to want to pick up regardless, because I've always really liked the sort of, shattered glass idea for Grimlock, which is basically just like is Grimlock, but in Trypticon colors, which I think is a really cool idea, and I think it suits this mold pretty well. I mean, I had no problem getting this figure again because I absolutely love Studio Series Grimlock. I think that it's like maybe one of my favorite figures in my entire collection. I think it's just an incredible figure. So getting it again is certainly, pretty all right, especially in a cool new color scheme. But yeah, no, it looks pretty good in his Dino mode here. I'm not totally convinced on the choice of like the white that they chose here. I feel like, at least comparing it to Titan's Return Trypticon, the white on him is a little bit more of like a dull gray, and I think that would have worked a little bit better. I don't know. This just kind of pops in a way that it pops and it looks all right, but I guess I'd wish it was more consistent to our most recent Trypticon figure that we got, because definitely this guy kind of pumps up the saturation on a lot of his colors a little bit, but still I think it looks good, and I think you can still tell the motif here. Now obviously it comes with the same gun that Studio Series Grimlock did, just with the still cast in black, but just with the tips painted orange here, and I think it looks pretty all right. You can store this in Dino mode. There's two slots on the back of what will become part of his feet, and then two little tabs on the gun here. Now on mine, this is not an issue I have in Studio Series Grimlock, but I can never get these panels to totally sit well together, so I kind of have to, which doesn't really actually bother me all that much just looking at the dinosaur mode, but when attaching the gun I have to kind of squeeze these together so that those the slots for the tabs line up, and it's a pretty tight connection, but it works. Like with the previous version of this mold, I don't really like that storage. I think it just makes the dinosaur mode look a lot worse. And with him, honestly, I wish there was some way to attach it like this, because I think that could actually fit the vibe of Trypticon a little bit more, because there is the shoulder cannons on Trypticon, so that would kind of be a facsimile of that, and I think that could look cool. But alas, obviously they didn't really remold anything for this figure. In terms of articulation in this mode, the head is on a swivel here, and it can also swivel up and down. It kind of clicks into place for transformation, but up until then. The mouth can open about that far. Like with Studio Series Grimlock, obviously, he doesn't have any front teeth on either jaw, which is a little bit annoying. And, I ended up getting a filler thing for Grimlock to add extra teeth there. But with him, it would be a little bit more difficult because his teeth are actually painted. So you'd have to actually replicate the, the very slightly pearlescent white that they have going on here for the neck and the teeth. The shoulders here are on ball joints, so they can rotate around and come right off, and can, kind of hinge in and out just on the ball itself. He's got an elbow hinge right here, which can go all the way back and then all the way forward like that. The hips, of course, will just be the robot mode arms, so you can rotate them around like that. They're on ratchets, can rotate out to the side. It's got I guess in this mode, it's a thigh swivel. You can use, so he's got a couple joints here. He has a joint that locks in place like this to be actually the dinosaur knee, which is not used for robot mode, and then he has the robot mode elbow, which goes the other way, which to be totally accurate to a T-Rex, I guess he would have sort of digitigrade legs, but on this kind of more old school stand-up T-Rex kaiju looking guy, I don't think that the bent legs really look. So, you know, I really look that good. I think that it usually looks fine just keeping them straight. But if you want a dinosaur knee, that is kind of the one you're supposed to use. And then the claws can both hinge up and down on both sides here. I will say that the claws on mine were really loose out of the box. Not like floppy loose or anything, just like, I don't know, just easier to move than I'd like them to be. But it was fixable. I just kind of tightened all 4 of these screws, and that pretty much solved the problem. They feel just fine now, so worth mentioning. But if you have that issue as well, then that is the solution for it. In terms of comparisons in this mode, I didn't bother putting anyone in their vehicle mode just because I feel like it's a better comparison to see robots with the dinosaur rather than, you know, cars with the dinosaur. But just for the standard one, here he is with Kingdom Sideswipe. So you can see how he stacks up there with an average size deluxe. And then here he is with all of our other Shattered Glass figures. Let's get, or specifically the Autobots. There's Optimus Prime, Ratchet, Blaster and Rewind. We got Blur in the back there with his floppy arm panel. And Goldbug, just so you can see what the full, you know, kind of modern Shattered Glass Autobot team looks like together. And I think that's a pretty good look there. And then here he is with Titans Return Trypticon here, away from the main review table, just so I could actually fit Trypticon on frame. So you can see some of the differences. Like, obviously the color scheme is pretty much the same, but the colors are a little bit different. You know, Trypticon had the whole thing going on with like the translucent orange, so obviously the orange isn't going to be like a perfect match. I'd say Grimlock's gray is a little bit darker. His like green color is a little bit more saturated than Trypticon's, and the white is a bit more like white rather than the kind of light gray. But otherwise, I still think that you get the general idea here. And last but not least, here he is with the original Studio Series Grimlock, just so you can see how the different color schemes look there. And yeah, I mean, obviously, you know, no remolding or anything like that. I kind of wish there was still an Autobot symbol on the chest, but other than that, you know, he's got a few ones on his little hips here that he didn't have, so kind of works out. But yeah, that's what they look like together. Now, obviously, the transformation is just the same as it was before. It's still a really nice kind of smooth transformation. I think that things feel a little bit worse on him than they did on the original Studio Series Grimlock, but I'm also just like used to how all the joints feel on that figure, that, you know, maybe some things that just where the tolerances are slightly different in here, I just kind of don't prefer, but, you know, it's mostly fine. You want to take the head and kind of click it back like that and then unplug it, and it will plug in there eventually, but for now, just bring it out of the way to get in the back. I usually bring the arms up so they're kind of like sitting forward, because it's easier to get them kind of, you know, sitting symmetrically now rather than later. And then these panels on tab, now this is a lot tighter than it was on Studio Series Grimlock, and it's a little bit annoying to get those on tab, but it's not too bad. You just want to take that, and then they're on hinges here, which kind of allow you to get them out around the hips here. Just bring them to the back just like that for now. And then we want to take the robot mode head, fold it up on that panel there, and then take the chest, and it'll kind of untab from this section here, and then double hinge up like this, and lock back in place. Then we want to take the tail here and split it down the middle, and then take these halves and they rotate out like this, and then take the actual tips of the tail. They're on these double hinge armatures here, and just fold them inside of these panels just like this. And then untab the feet from the back, and then bring them up like this. Now they're on these, you know, these sort of like supposed to be automatic sliding things, where like the piece that they're sliding in is kind of angled. So in theory, you're supposed to be able to bring it up and it pushes the piece over. Usually with these, I feel like it's putting a little bit too much stress on like this piece of plastic. So I usually just like, you know, slide it over myself, but notionally it is supposed to be kind of automatic to like, you know, splay the legs out a little bit more. But then these lock into place. Then you can take this big chunk and then just put it back where it was, and then unfold the foot here, so and tab it into place to make the leg, and just do that on both sides here. Then let's see, do we have to adjust the camera? No, I think that's all right. And then for the arms here, we just take the hands. They're kind of, you know, just folded onto the inside here. This one actually really locks in place a little bit tighter than it needs to. There we go. And then click that back into place on the other side. Then I usually take the claws and just kind of angle them down a little bit, just to make it feel a little bit more natural. Kind of unlock the elbows here and bring the arms down. And then we can take the dinosaur head and actually lock it into place and then bring the wings down however you prefer them. And there we have Shattered Glass Grimlock in his robot mode. And yeah, I think he looks really good. He's definitely, I think this color scheme suits him. Unfortunately, on mine, the face has a very tiny little paint blemish there where there's like a little tiny chip of the white not there, which stands out since it's on black plastic. But, you know, that's not the end of the world, just a little bit annoying. Would have been more annoyed by that if this guy cost $10 more than a usual leader class. But since he's normal price, I think I can kind of forgive that. But yeah, no, what's nice is even though they dropped it back down to like a regular leader class price, he still definitely feels like he's got that kind of like premium Shattered Glass paint scheme. Mostly it's just because they picked colors that pop really well and painted it all nicely, but still it's nice to know that, like, you know, it really was just the comic book that was making it that price. And it doesn't feel like they kind of like skimped out on paint or anything like that. Now, articulation is pretty much the same as Studio Series Grimlock. Obviously, the head is on a ball joint here. The panel still doesn't really lock in place as well as it could, but you know, it's not too bad. But yeah, you can wiggle the head back and forth and obviously rotate it around. The shoulders, just like in Dino mode, are on these ratchet joints that go all the way around like that, and then out to the side. His thigh swivel is now a bicep swivel, and then the elbows get, you know, a bit over 90 degrees worth of bend there. And I guess if you wanted to, you could bend them backwards, but to what end? And then the wrists can also rotate, and then obviously you can adjust these however you like. It's got a waist cut. Hips can go forward and back and out to the side. He's got a thigh swivel. He's got maybe a degree or two under 90 degrees of bend at the knee, and then the feet can tilt out to the side. I will say this leg is maybe a little bit looser than I'd like it to be. Like it usually holds its pose all right, but it kind of, you know, it just feels a little bit looser than than Studio Series Grimlock. And again, like on Studio Series Grimlock, you can kind of adjust the wings however you want. You can kind of angle them back. They also have these hinges, and then same thing with the arms here. Now, obviously, we can give him his gun again. I guess I'll put it in his left hand since he's a Mirror Universe guy. So you can hold that just like that. And if you want to store it, I still think it's a shame that it doesn't store better for me in Dino mode, because I do think that the storage in robot mode is kind of neat. It's got like this little section here that's basically just a big clip that clips over his dinosaur mode arm just like that, which I think is a neat way to store it. And, you know, really, you know, it means that they didn't have to put like any extra like tabs or holes anywhere where, you know, just makes it look a little bit better. I don't know. I just think that's neat. But yeah, in terms of comparisons in this mode, here he is again with Kingdom Sideswipe, just so you can see how he towers over an average size deluxe there. And let's get on all the other Shattered Glass figures again. We've got Optimus Prime, Blaster, Rewind, Ratchet, Blurred. God, this is really loosened up over time, and it's still to this day, Blur was the first, like, you know, Shattered Glass collection figure. I mean, these two came before him, but, you know, he was the first one that was actually in the official Shattered Glass collection. And still, out of all the ones that I've gotten, he's the only one that felt like it's actually, like, you know, a bit of a downgrade from the original figure, just in terms of how all the joints feel and stuff like that. So annoying for him, but I guess good for the rest of the line there. But yeah, that's what the full team of Shattered Glass Autobots look like together, and I think that's a pretty nice look there. Here he is again with Titans Return Trypticon. And then here he is again with the original Studio Series Grimlock, just so you can see what they look like together. And yeah, I think that's a pretty good look here. I like, you know, the different choices for where the colors are popped out. One thing that I didn't mention on him, but is a really neat little choice here, is if you look just behind his chest panel here, you can see the area behind the orange chest plate is actually painted white. Or maybe, no, yeah, it must be painted white, not cast in white. So that when you get the orange on there, it really makes it kind of like glow in a way that it wouldn't really work if it was like the orange mixing with the purple. And I think that's a really neat idea. They didn't decide to pick out the Autobot logo that's in there, but I don't know. I think that's kind of, I like the kind of subtlety of it, honestly. Like, you can still clearly see that there's an Autobot logo, but it's not a different color. And, you know, I don't know. I just think it kind of works, I guess, because, like, really, if they were going to paint it, you know, purple like the other ones, then it would have been that purple mixing with the orange, which maybe would have looked a little bit browny. So, you know, I think it works pretty well. Also, you know, I don't know if I specifically mentioned it, but he does have little little tiny purple highlights and the little like crests on his head here, which is a nice subtle touch as well. But yeah, no, like I said, he pretty much feels as good as the original Studio Series Grimlock. There's definitely a few joints that are a little bit looser. Like if you just listen to like, you know, his knee joint, it's nice and stiff, and his waist joint, you can actually hear the clicks pretty solidly. Whereas him, it's just like, yeah, you know, it's fine. It's just a little bit softer, like, you know, easier to push back and forth, but still holds its place. So it's not really bad. It's just like a little bit looser than the original. But yeah, that's pretty much all there is to him. Again, just a nice looking color scheme on a really good mold that I liked the first time and I like again now. Still feels pretty solid. You know, the claws were a little bit loose out of the box, but that was easy to fix. I really appreciate that he's just a normal leader class price rather than being the additional $10 to get a comic book that I don't necessarily need. I hope they continue that trend if they do more Shattered Glass figures, because I was really starting to feel like I had to just like jump off of the Shattered Glass line at some point, because like, you know, it's a like a line entirely made out of repaints of figures, which is fine for what it is, obviously, but you know, having to pay $10 extra for each of them to get comic books that I didn't need was kind of rough. And then they were starting to pull things like putting figures that didn't necessarily have to be Shattered Glass at all into the Shattered Glass collection, or adding full-on extra deluxes with figures that I wanted. So you had to pay like basically double the price to buy something else that you wouldn't again necessarily have wanted. So I appreciate that it's just kind of a regular figure with a nice color scheme, and I hope that continues if they do more of these. But yeah, that's pretty much all there is to them. If you enjoy my videos, make sure to leave a like and consider subscribing. I do reviews every Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday. Make sure to check me out on Instagram. That's toys.n.art, where I post various toys-related things. And yeah, without further ado, here we have Transformers Shattered Glass Collection Grimlock.